Hello and welcome everyone to the first of what I hope is going to be a regular series of live streams that I do, just giving updates on what's going on with the Digital Tolkien project, what we're working on, what we have accomplished, occasionally some other Tolkien related stuff that's going on that I'll share. Of course, today is Hobbit Day, the 22nd of September, if you don't make the calendar adjustment, which we probably should, but we tend not to. It's Hobbit Day today, so I do have a big announcement that I'm very excited about, a sneak peek of something that I've been thinking about for a long time, have been building up a lot of data around, but we're really just getting started with this. So the reason I'm doing this as a live stream is partly just to overcome perfection. I've wanted to do a video like this for a long time, but I have been stuck in that kind of wanting to make it perfect and have been worried that I would, start recording and then stop it because I made a mistake. By doing it live like this, you do get to see it warts and all, but it kind of just forces me to do it. And I've taken a lot of inspiration from Ali Abdaal, the YouTuber, who often makes the point that it's more important to get going before worrying about getting good. And so, there'll be mistakes, there'll be ums and ahs, there'll be things that I get wrong, but hopefully this will be a much more regular thing as a result. So in the words of Bilbo in his birthday speech, I shall not keep you long. These will generally be, I hope, quite short videos. Anyway, what I want to talk about is a couple of exciting things that have been going on and then make the big announcement at the end. I want to start, this is not a Digital Tolkien thing, but I do want to start, I'll occasionally do this, talking about some recent book acquisitions. And I want to start off with, let me just switch to video only so you can see this. I do want to start off with Why We Love Middle-earth, which recently came out. Sean and Alan from the Prancing Pony podcast. This is an absolutely wonderful book. It has the love and the knowledge and the humor and the enthusiasm that you would expect from the guys. So I'm extremely excited that this is out, and I encourage you, regardless of where you're at with Tolkien, to take a look at this book. The other book acquisition I just want to briefly mention, on my way to Oxford for Oxonmoot 3 weeks ago, I stopped by Jonker's Rare Books in Henley-on-Thames and picked up this first edition Silmarillion. Now, first edition Silmarillions are not uncommon. In fact, it may be surprising to some people that, according to Publishers Weekly, the Silmarillion was the number one best-selling hardcover book in 1977 when it came out, which I think would always make a fun quiz question. If you ask somebody which book by Tolkien was the number one bestseller the year it came out, I don't think many people would pick the Silmarillion, although if you think about it, it makes sense that it would be the Silmarillion. He was already extremely well known by then, which is why it sold out. So first edition Silmarillions are not rare. So why did I have to go to a rare bookseller in Henley-on-Thames to pick up this one? Well, the reason is that this has something I've wanted for a very long time, which is Christopher Tolkien's signature. So this is my pride and joy now, my copy of the Silmarillion signed by Christopher Tolkien. Actually, this is signed by Alan and Sean too, which I dearly love. And maybe one day it will be valuable as well and sold in places like Jonker's Rare Books. Anyway, let me move on to the other stuff that I want to update you on, and then, of course, the announcement. So one of the things that I do really want to celebrate is the completion of the first round of the speaker identification. So one of the things we've been doing at the Digital Tolkien project is going through the Hobbit, the Silmarillion, and the Lord of the Rings, and first of all identifying all the places that have direct speech, whether that's in quotation marks or italics. It's not a trivial task because quotation marks are used for other things, and italics are used for other things too. So teasing those out, working which are direct speech. And then the even more difficult task of going through and working out who is actually speaking in each case. That is now finished. at least the first round of it, and I'm so excited because it unlocks so much interesting research that can be done around the way that different characters speak, being able to search for where a word is used by a particular character, for example, and all sorts of things like that. So I just want to make a big shout out to everyone that helped. It was a real team effort. It was wonderful to see so many people participate. I especially want to call out Maureen Dillon, Pat Lusk, and Sarah Monnier for all of the work they did on this, as well as everyone else. They got it done on the Lord of the Rings just in time for my Oxonmoot talk and my dissertation, which I'll come to in a moment, which was just really wonderful because I was able to incorporate a lot of information from that annotation. I just want to give you a quick indication of the sort of things that we now have. So I'm not going to linger on this too much for copyright reasons, but what we now have is every statement, every bit of direct speech made by everyone, who's making it, where they're making it, and including embedding. So, for example, when Glóin quotes Dain in the Council of Elrond, or when Elrond is quoting Isildur, we know that it's Isildur's voice. It's Isildur to whom the direct speech is attributed, but it's actually Elrond that's conveying it, and so on. So all this information for all of the Lord of the Rings, the Silmarillion, and the Hobbit is now available. I can't obviously make the direct results available to researchers, but there's a lot of stuff that can be done in collaboration to find things. So really wonderful work, and thank you to everyone who was involved in doing that. There's still more work to do, in particular to do with tying in the who the speakers were to some of the other work that we're doing at the Digital Tolkien Project. For example, the name index that Chiara Palladino and I have been working on for a long time, a sort of an authority list of who are the characters in each of the books. So regardless of what they're referred to as and so on, the text can be, the speech can be linked to them. So a lot of exciting stuff there. I mentioned the Oxonmoot talk and my MA dissertation. So on 3 weeks ago, on the 2nd of September, I had the privilege of speaking at Oxford on the 50th anniversary of Tolkien's death. And I talked about the research that I had done for my MA dissertation, which happened to be due 2 days later on the 4th of September. But my presentation at Oxonmoot was on linguistic variation in Tolkien's writing style. So I was interested in questions like what, from a linguistic point of view, characterizes the differences between the writing in Lord of the Rings versus the Hobbit and the Silmarillion, as well as other questions like how do different characters speak differently? How does Sam speak differently from Frodo? How does Faramir speak differently from Balim and Butterbur, and so on? And obviously, in order to do that, I needed to know who was saying what, which is why the speaker identification was so vital. Now, I'm not going to go into any more detail about my Oxonmoot talk because hopefully the video for that will be available. It's not available yet, but hopefully it'll be available shortly. And what I plan to do, a couple of people requested this, was for me to go into a little bit more detail about the stuff that I talked about in my Oxonmoot talk. So the plan is, once the Oxonmoot talk is available, I'll share that with people, and then we'll probably do some sort of live interactive Zoom call or something if people are interested in asking more questions and drilling more into the kind of linguistic and statistical analyses that were done as part of this and my master's dissertation. Okay. I just want to briefly, before I get to the big announcement, I do want to sort of touch on the fact that a lot of different things are going on in the Digital Tolkien Project, and people aren't necessarily aware of the breadth of it. There are a lot of people that I think assume the Digital Tolkien Project is just Search Tolkien. You can see on the bottom left there. Search Tolkien was just something I whipped up on a weekend, to be honest. It's turned out to be really helpful for many people, I think. But it is just an example of something that's built on a huge amount of existing work. So obviously a lot of our focus has been on just getting texts digitized, doing the structured markup, the citation system and so on. And there's a lot of work still to be done, especially in History of Middle-earth in that area. But then there's a lot of stuff that's coming out of that. The speaker identification being a great example, the name index that I mentioned, where we're going through all the different ways in which characters and places are referred to and so on. There's some initial work that we've done. Hannah MacDonald and I have started on scene segmentation, and then there's a ton of linguistic analysis that we've done. Other things that sort of off in the future, things like timelines and maps and genealogies. There's a catalogue of verse that we've started. Again, Hannah MacDonald's involved in that. Of course, many of you are familiar in the top right corner with Lord of the Rings, which is just, again, another little thing that was built on top of a huge amount of work that had already been done on the text. But today I do wish to make an announcement, and it has to do with what you can see in the middle at the bottom, the Tolkien Glossary. And so let me switch over to give you a sneak peek of the Tolkien Glossary, which is a brand new website that's going to it's really an underlying database with a website on top. And I'm hoping many of you will get involved in building it out. So the idea of the Tolkien Glossary, or the sort of reason for its existence, is in many, many cases, it's helpful to have information about the words that are in the texts, independent of their particular usage within the text. Often people will say to me stuff like, can you find all the places where types of trees are mentioned, or body parts are mentioned, or colours are mentioned, and so on. And some of you may have seen the little delvings that I've been doing showing different uses of colour in the text. But in order to ask those kinds of questions, you need to annotate the words themselves with what category they are. There are all sorts of other questions, not just to do with semantics, things like etymology, being able to identify what are the words that are Latinate versus Germanic, or what are the words that are Sindarin versus Quenya, and so on. And in order to do that, we need to go through all the words and annotate them. And that's essentially what the Tolkien Glossary is intended to be. It's intended to be a database of word-level information across the corpus. And so I just want to give you a sneak peek of that now, although it's coming along really nicely, building on some previous work that has been done within the project and a bunch of other stuff. I do want to emphasize Treebeard's quote that you've probably heard me say at almost every talk I ever give about the Digital Tolkien Project, which is, we have a long way to go and there is time ahead for thought. It is something to have started. So with that in mind, let me show you a few things. So you can look up any word. So it currently covers The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and The Silmarillion. What you do is type in any word and it will autocomplete and show you a list of the words that start with what you start typing. Okay, so the first thing we do in each page is give information about how many times that word appears in each of the texts, and then we get this plot of exactly where in the text that word appears. But another thing that we do is, there's no example of it here, but we can link, we can tag words, we can put them in different categories and so on. I'm eventually going to provide other information. I mentioned etymology. There's also be things like part of speech and grammatical roles, collocations to see other words that appear nearby this word and so on. There's a lot of stuff that can be included. Speaker information as well. So how many times is a particular word spoken by a particular character and so on. But you can go to that. It's fun looking at just even things like the distribution of Frodo, right? You can see just how much he's lacking in Book 3 and Book 5 and so on. But if I bring up another word like Hobbit, seeing as it's Hobbit Day, we can not only see the distribution of hobbits through the work, we can also see all of the hyphenated words that contain the word Hobbit, which is something that would normally be a little more difficult to do, is find out exactly what are the ways in which Tolkien used the word Hobbit in hyphenated form. And we can click on any of these to go to the entry for this page. So the term Hobbit eyes, hyphenated, appears once in Lord of the Rings, in the Two Towers. But you can see that one of the things it's done is it's broken down the components. So it's linked to both the Hobbit and eyes. And we can click on eyes then and see not only where the word eyes appears, but also all of the various hyphenated terms that eyes appears in. So if you're ever wondering, what are the different hyphenated words with eyes, you can easily see that we get elf eyes and elven eyes, as well as Hobbit eyes, of course. We also get knight eyes and serpent eyes. Interesting. Okay, so that's the Silmarillion. But we also have, I think this is a sort of central part of where this site is going to go, is these tags. So any word that's hyphenated, for example, is tagged as hyphenated. So you can click and see all of the 2,416 word forms that are hyphenated. Tolkien loved his hyphenated words. You can click it up in tags here to get a list of the tags we have so far. So you can see that some of them have to do with sort of the actual form of the word hyphenated here. There's also a list of all the words that have apostrophes in them. And one of the things that I've just started doing is going through this list of 551 words and identifying whether the apostrophe is there because it's a contraction or because it's possession or some other reason. And so, for example, if you look at like a sneakin', a talkin', and a thinkin', they'll all be tagged specifically as contractions where the G's been dropped. The final G's been dropped in an ing. And so if you're wondering what are all the places where Tolkien does that, the Tolkien Glossary will answer that question. And of course, once we layer in the speaker ID information as well, you'll be able to say who talks like that, who actually exhibits that dropping of the G in an ing. But there are other things as well, like you can see languages, for example. So for Lord of the Rings, it's only been done for the Lord of the Rings so far. I've tagged language, like you can get a list of all the Sindarin words that appear in Lord of the Rings, or Quenya or Old English, right? You can see all the words that are based on Old English, mostly names, of course. But you can see the hopefully the value in being able to do this sort of thing. And as I mentioned, I want to bring in etymological information, so you'll be able to distinguish Latinate words from Germanic words and so on. And I've done one just very quick example of sort of more of the semantic classification with a core color term. So these are the core colors that get used. But of course, what you can do on any of these is see how they're used in hyphenated phrases. So you can see all the different ways that Tolkien uses green as part of a hyphenated phrase. So this is where we're at now. There's a ton of stuff that we can potentially tag, and also and other information that can be provided about each of the words, including, as I mentioned, I think lemmatization. So one of the things that at the moment is if you look for foot, it's not getting feet. Or other, if you go to feet, you're not getting foot and so on. So linking those different inflected forms of the same word is going to be something that will be provided as well. I'm planning on doing some integration between this and the OED and also the Tolkien Gateway. And also, many of you may be familiar that the Prancing Pony podcast does these philology fairs, and Alan's Today's Tolkien Times does a Word Nerd Wednesday, and my hope is to also link to those as well. So if the Prancing Pony podcast has done a deep dive on a particular word, it will be linked to from here. So hopefully this will be sort of a really great resource for anyone that's interested in understanding how a particular word is used in Tolkien's works. Okay, so that's the sneak peek. In the Discord channel, which in the Discord server, which you should all join, there's a link on the website, digitaltolkien.com, but I'll also make sure there's a link in the description of this video for those who are watching later. The people watching live are all from the Discord because I only announced it in the Discord. But we are setting up a new channel, glossary, that if you're interested in participating in working on any of this, I welcome you to check that out. Also, I encourage you to like this video and consider subscribing to get more of these sorts of updates. But that's it. That's what I've got for today. This is the end. I'm going. I'm leaving now. Goodbye.